So today we are gonna be checking out the super test 0.10.7. In this super test devlog, Wargaming give us the stats of the new German battleships, the British Tier 10 battleship Incomparable, and the Brandenburg and the Karl von Schönberg. Please note that all the information in the development blog is preliminary, and they can be changed. But when I first looked at this blog and looked at the stats of the ships, I was heavily disappointed, and I'll be also talking about that after checking all the stats. We already seen the ships: Wundertun, Moltke, Derflinger, Mackensen, Prince Henrik, Zieten, Prince Ruprecht, the Schlieffen, and then Incomparable, the new destroyer, the Karl von Schönberg, and the Tier 8 German battleship Brandenburg. So let's start with the Tier 3, Wundertun. It has 36.5k HP, and the guns from the Nassau. It's good for the tier. You have very low Sigma. The dispersion is battlecruiser dispersion. Without seeing it, I can't really say anything about the accuracy. The reload is really good. Secondaries really terrible. AA non-existent. Speed, this is the fastest ship of the tier 3. Like fastest battleship of the tier 3. And has one of the best consumers. And then it has a fast damage control team from the Soviets. I will also talk about this after checking all the stats of German battleships, because I have some bad opinions about this gimmick. So every one of them is equipped with this fast damage cone, and it has standard heal. Moltke, 40,000 HP, just. And it's slightly worse than the Kaiser, as you can see. 40,000 ton versus 40,000 HP versus 46,000 HP, and the armor is 19mm. The range on the guns are 15.4, slightly worse than the Kaiser, and the gun caliber is actually worse as well. Instead of 305, it is 283mm. And the reload is actually worse as well. And dispersion is still questionable, especially the Sigma. Meaning the Moltke is actually slightly worse than the Kaiser itself. But the secondary is garbage. AA, non-existence. But the speed is where it becomes much more interesting on the Moltke. It's much better than the Kaiser. That's slightly better consumer as well, meaning you can play with your you have much more of an upper hand when it comes to battling other battleships. Derflinger. Let me just open the Koenig as well. That'll tier 5. Derflinger has 47k HP. Similar to Koenig. You have 8 305mm guns. It is just 1/3 lower than the Koenig, which the Koenig has 5 turrets with 2 guns. It's the same gun, if I'm correct. Yeah, it's the same gun, same AP, same HE, but the reload is 2 seconds faster. And you have slightly better dispersion area. Meanwhile, you don't have range, I'm gonna say, but it's 16.4 on the Kaiser and 16.3 on the Derflinger, so it's not a big of a differences. You have 0.2 Sigma, but you have a battlecruiser dispersion. And only thing that I can say, the closest thing that we can compare these German battleships is the Florida. Florida has 1.7 Sigma with battlecruiser dispersion. So, like I said, the best comparison right now is American Tier 7 Premium. Secondary armament, not that of important. You don't really have the range. No AA and 26.5 knot speed. It's a workable speed. It's not a bad one. I think, yeah, the speed of the Koenig is actually coming close to this battle cruiser. But it has better consumers. It still has the fast damage control and the repair party. The tier 6. This is where the things becomes much more interesting. So 52,000 health hit points and a plating of 25mm. 4x2 350mm. If anyone, if you ever played Prince Arthur Frederick, which is a tier 6 premium, these guns are very similar. They just have slightly better accuracy, but the Sigma is like 0.4 worse. But the dispersion formula is the battlecruiser one. Like this ship is very weird. Like to me, it's just very weird. And then it really doesn't have any AA or secondary. This thing is basically the worst tier 6 battleship in the game. Bayern will be just better to play. Bayern also can get 26 knot speed. It's very close to the 28 of the Mackensen. I feel like the wargaming just made a really big error with the Mackensen because Mackensen really doesn't feel battlecruiser at this point. You turn slow, you have slightly good concealment, but I'm not sure what this can go down to. Bayern has Bayern and the Mackensen has very close concealments. 13.4, which if we just add 0.3, it means like 13.6 or something. This is very close. So I think the Mackensen's concealment is somewhere around 11.8, 11.7. It's good, but not that good. You get Hydra. This is the interesting part. You get a Hydra with a World War One hull. The ship, the Mackensen, is this. It's not the Prince Arthur Frederick. The Prince Arthur Frederick has, like the Atlantic bow, some of the equipment from the World War II, 105mm secondary and all. So something like Prince Arthur Frederick would be much more understandable, as to be equipped with the Hydra, but this thing is basically from World War I, which is weird. The Prince Henrik. Very similar HP to the Knights now, just slightly worse. 25mm armor, 3mm guns from the Bayern, which isn't a bad one, considering your dispersion is battlecruiser dispersion and you have 1.6 Sigma. And I think this ship is one of the best ships of this line, mainly because it really stays in line with the same tier ships. It's really not that bad. The 25mm, it's very similar to 26mm, so it's really not big of a change. The HP pool is not the highest, but it's very similar to your Knights now. You have 3mm guns from the Bayern with 2-second better reload. The turret turns very fast, and the guns are just accurate enough. Like the dispersion formula is very accurate, but the Sigma will make it in line with the other German battleships. You have 10km torpedoes from the same tier destroyer, Z-31. It's a bit of a terrible torpedoes. I'm not sure how it will be in use. Secondary is not big of a thing to talk about. The secondary loadout on this ship is very similar to Scharnhorst. So I think if you're good with the Scharnhorst, you will be good with this thing as well. But the AA is terrible. 168 with just a 3.5km range, and 5 flag is very good though. That's one big part. It has very good amounts of flag, but the range is very low. So when the flag becomes available is something like 4.6, 4.7, somewhere around those lines. The AA is just not that good. Speed, you're slower than the Gunais now. I think you turn slightly better than the Gunais now. Let's just take the Gunais now. And let's just slap everything. And yes, you actually turn better than the Gunais now. You can see. Yeah, you turn slightly better than the Gunais, but your weather shift is very similar. You have better concealment than the Gunais now. That's a good part. You have better concealment than the Gunais now. I think the best is below 12 km or somewhere along those lines. It's not bad one. Fast damage control team and a hydroacoustic at tier 7. And this is 5.5 km radio. It's not a bad one. This thing basically a tier 7 battleship, that's why. Let's go for the Zeton. Because all these are much more in line with it here, but the Zeton, where the nightmare starts. Low HP and low armor. The guns, 4.6mm, 19.1 km range. The guns looks like from the Frederick the Grossa, but the turrets are from World War 1. So without knowing the penetration of these guns, we really cannot say much. You have 25-second reload and 30-second turret rotation time with 1.7 Sigma and battle cruiser dispersion. This is basically the same as the Florida. The tier 7 American battleship. It has, like I said, battle cruiser dispersion with a 1.7 Sigma. So if you ever played that ship and if it is accurate, it is basically applies to the ship, but you only have 6 guns. You have 2x4 533mm torpedoes with, these are the same torpedoes as the Felix Schultz. Slow and hard hitting. And has decent concealment for its speed. Secondaries, kind of a decent part of the ship. You don't really have much of a secondaries on this part, but the 105s are just enough. This is the same as the Bismarck and the Tirpitz, and at this tier, those secondaries actually work. And then you have good AA on the short range, but the short range is only 3 km with a 70% hit probability, and I cannot promise if this is going to be that good. Long range, useless. You have more flak with 7 flak. This is the same as the Bismarck Tirpitz, Puma and Frederick the Grossa, but like all those ships, it has very low range, meaning it's not really gonna be effective. Maximum speed, 31 knots, slower than the Bismarck, funny enough. And if these guns are really from World War 1, it will also have worse penetration than the Bismarck, despite being the 4.6mm. So it's a bit of a questionable ship. I think it also turns better. Yeah, it turns better, just a slightly better. And it has slightly better battleship time. Its concealment is not the best one. 15.3 means 11.7 or somewhere around those lines. And air detectability 11 km, not so good. Hydroacoustic search and fast damage guns. Now we get a 6 km, which is a better hydro than the Bismarck. But overall, the Zeton really doesn't have like the firepower. Like, it has 27mm armor. What you gonna do with it? Like, these supposed to be a bowling battleships. Once again, I will talk about it. But these supposed to be a bowling battleships, and it has 27mm armor. And in these battlecruiser designs, really didn't have much of an armor as well. On the mid part, there's like 300mm belt, if I remember correctly. Meaning you only have some small amounts of armor in the mid, while the bow and the aft is 27mm. We also don't know the citadel design. Does it have the turtleback, or does it like the Prince Arthur Frederik? If it is like Prince Arthur Frederik, these are not bowlers. These shouldn't be designed as a bowlers because they cannot do that role. They're not suited for it. And honestly, we already have two German brawling battleship lines. One of them is a premium line, like Odin, Pommern, like the Tirpitz, and now the Brandenburg. All of them has better secondaries. And the tier 10 might also get something like Ghost of Kefas 2.0 with 128mm secondaries, and it will end up better than these secondaries by a mile, because it's just way cheaper. I'm not sure what we're gonna be aiming with these ships, and the Z10 is really showing its, poor capacity. Let's move for the Prince Ruprecht. 64k HP. Lowest, I think it's the lowest actually. The Leon has slightly better HP if I remember. And it actually shows how bad this ship is. Low HP, low armor on the bow and aft, and probably something like 50mm deck armor and 300mm belt on the mid, with 150 or 100mm upper belt. That's a probability. 4x2 for 6mm guns with a 19.5km range. Maximum HE shell damage is same as the Frederick Dagosa. The HE is the same as Frederick Dagosa. And AP is also the same as Frederick Dagosa 406. But these guns are from World War I. That's one big concern that I have. The AP shells on this thing might end up just in the same way as the Bayern. Because if you know the Bayern, the World War I era guns that she has, it has like 100mm worse penetration than the later Gneisenau's 38mm guns. So the same thing also applies to Prince Henrik. It's gonna have the same penetration as the Bayern, and it's the same thing's gonna apply to this, like having 100mm worse penetration than the Frederick Dagosa's AP. That's one of the biggest concerns that we can have. It has worse reload as well than the Frederick Dagosa, and we know Frederick Dagosa has really troubling problems. Fast turret rotation and battlecruiser dispersion with 1.7 sigma. On this ship, it might even more feel like a Florida. So I'm not actually concerned about the sigma because you have very good dispersion. You can just build for the guns and get even better dispersion that the sigma will not matter that often. So the guns are very questionable. We don't know what type of penetration that the AP gonna have, but the reload is poor, while the sigma is also being poor, but the dispersion being very good and the turret rotation is being very good. It just creates a very confusing line. Torpedo tubes, 4x4. So you have 8 torpedoes per side. If you maneuver a lot, you can actually launch like 16 torpedoes from 12km. And I think this ship also has stealth torpedo capabilities. It's a very good. Reload is very too high, and speed is very low, so you're not gonna launch them that often though. Secondaries. At this tier, it's same as Frederick Dagosa, but there is some concerns. This armor and this HP is not gonna just allow the secondaries. Like, that's the part. It's really that big of a deal. You really cannot push with this HP. And if you push, you really cannot survive. Because you don't have the heal opportunities. You have fast acting damage guns, but it's not gonna save you. You have good AA guns. You have huge amounts of flak. But like I said, it's the same problem as the lower tiers. And the short range AA aura is just not good enough. So your speed on this ship is 32 knots, which is 2 knots faster than the Frederick Dagosa. You turn better than the Frederick Dagosa by 100 meters, which is good. Rudder shift time is slightly better than the Frederick Dagosa. Actually, not slightly, it's 2 seconds better. surface detectability is actually way better than the Frederick Gosa. It is something like 12.1, 12.2, if I remember correctly, because of the second range, it actually forces slightly worse concealment. But yeah, it's not a bad concealment. Air detectability not so good. And the scope again. You have the 6-kilometer rider, just like Predator Gosa, and that's it about the Prince Ruprecht. At least the good thing is, if you just look at the ship, is the Ruprecht. It's not a big ship, it's a very small, just like the Zeton, but the Zeton has this superstructure like a Graf Spee, which will just attract shells, but the Prince Ruprecht is a very small vessel. Now to leave it. 70k HP, 27mm armor. Yeah, it has gigantic bow with 27mm. Everything gonna overmatch you. It's not good. Like my first impression about this line is it's just way too weak. It's underwhelming. Just like how they announced the German destroyers, it's very weak, and I don't like it. I mean, something like Russians or something, any other line just gets announced, and all of them gets good, like very good stats. Germans, no, always gets a bad stats. It's annoying. It's very annoying. I don't like this. I didn't like what Wargaming is always doing with the announcement for the German ships. And you have 420mm guns with 20-kilometer range. Your HE and AP is actually worse than the Gosa Curvers and the Frederick Gosa's 420s with just slightly better shell velocity. I'm not sure how the penetration going to be. Like I said, it also has. Oh, okay. These are Volvo 1 shells. You can see the high explosive. The fire chance went from 38% to 27%, and these are 420mm guns. And I bet the AP penetration is going to be as garbage as possible. And the reload is just garbage. The turn time is good enough. Dispersion, Sigma is garbage. Remember, Thunder has the same dispersion, but it has 1.9 Sigma. This thing has 1.7. It's going to be inaccurate. So you're not going to hit as much as shells that you can think of. With 420mm guns, that is from World War 1. You have slightly better range, but way worse reload for the torpedoes. Secondaries at this tier, 105s are useless. 150mm are doesn't have the DPM. If these gets like Graf Zeppelin levels of accuracy, maybe I can say yeah, that's good, but the current secondaries, we know they are not going to be good, so they are just going to be bad. AA, same problems as the lower tiers, so it's really not worth talking. And also, you have the same amounts of 30mm, but your damage per second, like DPS of the 30mm AA guns actually goes lower. From all the way, like, let's just see, where is the AA guns? You have like, on this one, 12x4, same amounts of 30mm, and it goes from 357 to 340. Really, I'm like thinking why. And then 55mm, which basically has no DPS, and very low range AA with 9 explosions. That does nothing. That's a very long one. Maximum speed 34 knots. Very good. Workable turning circle radius 16.1. Surface detectability 16km stock. It goes down to 12.6. And that's actually really good because secondaries can get 12.5. And you have like 1 kilometer stealth torpedo possibility. So it's very good, but consumables are very garbage. This is the same case as the German destroyers. German DDs also had very questionable consumable setup, and Wargaming is making the same mistake once again. So these are the German battlecruisers, and I would like to talk about them before moving on to other vessels. Let's close this and let's go higher. Okay, the German battlecruisers Wargaming designed them as brawlers, but they don't have the armor to brawl. They don't have the HP to brawl. Like, this new line is confused as possible. They are more confused than the previous German Destroyer line. Like, your guns are not from World War II. They are from World War One. I'm gonna talk about it now. But your HP, your armor, and your, like, they are basically against your brawling. Meanwhile, it has hydroacoustic surge and the fast damage guns, which is more for the brawling. And then you have torpedoes with the long range, which means you don't really have to get in, so you don't really have to brawl in. Your armor is probably, like I said, now for the citadel protection might not be a good one, so it's really not recommended for brawling in. And then you have a secondary that actually says that you should brawl. Like, it's just confused line, very confused line. Why everything is said in this way? I think Wargaming could design German battlecruisers while making them different than many other line, while also allowing British battlecruisers. Okay, I'm not a British battleship fan or a battlecruiser fan, but I think Wargaming can make both of those lines similar to each other, like taking the battlecruiser as a gimmick, but making them in their own nation style. Like Germans, like, just think about it. Battlecruisers, for them, the speed is their best friend, and this new line really doesn't take it, and it takes something different. It's just not so understandable. Like, I cannot understand it. Why this line is designed like this? Instead, they could do something like this. They get the same armor layout as they have now, 27mm bow and a low HP. They get very fast firing guns with a decent accuracy. They get standard secondaries. They get those long range torpedoes. They get the good concealment. And then their consumables could be different. Okay, let's go back to here, the key features. Availability of torpedoes with high range. Yes, it's the same. It stays. A large number of secondary guns with high accuracy. This goes. It just stays as the large, and it can be changed to low amounts of guns with a low penetration and low range, but with very high rate of fire. Low visibility, it stays. Availability of hydroacoustic surge consumables similar to that of German cruisers, it stays. Availability of fast damage control team, it goes, because this is a Soviet gimmick, and with something like Schlieffen, which is a very large ship, and it really doesn't have much of an armor, you don't want to tank. You wanna use maximum speed. You wanna be maneuvering as much as possible, and you wanna just heal as often as possible. So, instead of fast damage control team, it's supposed to be, it should be fast acting heal from the Massachusetts. It's a premium ship. It's a premium ship gimmick. Why is it a premium ship gimmick? Why we are getting the same gimmick from other battleship tech tree line? We should get a gimmick that none of the other tech tree line has. That's my opinion. But that would be just much better, because you can play the Schlieffen like Kunststücke Cruiser like, because it's a battle cruiser. You can just play it like a very fast battleship that just non-stop fires with the 420mm guns, but it really doesn't have a penetration. Remember that's the penetration problem that I'm talking about, is really the penetration problem. It's a World War I gun, so at longer ranges you get like 320mm penetration probably with the 420mm, because of the old gun gimmick. But the reload is just so fast that you can just murder cruisers or HE spam as well, despite the fact that HE isn't really good. But that's the aim here. After that, availability of the speed boost. It's the 8% speed boost. It's a standard speed boost, but it's a good one. So what this line brings is fast speed, fast reload, high accuracy range, but not so good accuracy. So it's German secondary firing range is high, but the accuracy is low. And then good concealment, like 12.6 it says. You get a hydroacoustic and fast acting heals with the speed boost. Meaning, and this ship is just battlecruiser. This is now a cruiser, not a battleship, and it really does what it really says. It uses speed as its friend, and it uses the main guns mainly. It has some higher armor in the mid, but the bow and the aft is lightly armored. The deck is also a bit of a lightly armored as well. That's the gimmick. Very good gimmick in my opinion. And it will also allow British battlecruisers to come in as well. What their gimmick will be, more guns, and AP is from the hood, like hood style AP that has better pen angles and better penetration. But they get way slower reload, and they get low visibility, low firing range, low amounts of torpedoes, lower than the Schlieffen, but they can single launch them. They get the Royal Navy DD hydroacoustic, the short range one, and then availability of super heal and the 10% speed boost. See, there is some sort of an exchange there. It's basically the same battlecruiser design, but it takes the British gimmick that we already have on some of the British ships, combines most of them, and from tier 3 to tier 10 we can actually design British battlecruiser British battlecruiser line as well. That it wouldn't be that big of a deal. Like the higher tiers are just G3, like the Z3. Was it the Z8? It's the 380mm using Monarch style battleship or battlecruiser, and then we get preliminary for the G3 and final design for the G3 at tier 10. And they just basically take the British gimmicks, and the German one takes the German ones with, and like combining the battlecruiser playstyle. See? Very good one. And comparing them to other tier 10s, they have less armor but way higher speed. It's like a Republic. But the Republic has overmatching guns. These don't. So it will be very understandable exchanges for some of these gimmicks. And to be honest, that would be more fitting. We already have Ghost of Curvers, and we're probably gonna get another Ghost of Curvers as a premium, for finally completing the premium lineup, just like the Massachusetts to Ohio. So the Schlieffen would end up as more of a battlecruiser, that stealthy cruiser hybrid thing at tier 10, while the Ghost of Curvers is the main secondary boat, and then her sister ship also comes in as a secondary boat again, and the Hanover also arrives into the game, because Hanover is not very overpowered if you ask me, and that would actually create variety between the German ships. The same happens with the G3 as well for the British lineup. It creates variety. We're now getting this thing. Incomparable. It's basically the same ship, but this thing has very high overmatch compared to the G3. G3 has the same style of armor, like the mid armor is slightly heavy armored. It has the torpedoes that I talked about, and it has 25mm bow and the aft. G3 is the same. And then there's the Conqueror, which is just a HE spammer. And let's actually move over to the Incomparable while we're talking about, because Incomparable is a bit of a power creeping ship. Hit points 70,000 HP, 25mm plating, like I said. The bow and aft is 25mm. It has 6 508mm guns with 17.6 kilometer range. HE on this thing is terrible. Yes, it's a good news actually. The HE is terrible. It's like the repulsed hood and the warspite style of HE, which is very good news. AP, high hitting, like it hits like a truck. You can see 20k per citadel. It will be very nightmare. 28 seconds, same as the Sekishima. 30-second turret rotation time. That might actually get nerfed because this thing is long range like a Sekishima, and 30-second turret rotation time will be just stupid. 196 meters with 2.0 sigma. This is the Sekishima dispersion. Because you can see that it's 17 kilometer range with 196 meters dispersion, and I think Sekishima is the same, but with 26 kilometer instead of the 17, and you have 2.0 sigma, same as Sekishima if I'm correct. The torpedoes that I talked about, it actually power creeps something like the Germans. 96-second reload. Like this thing basically gets better stats announcement. You can see that the guns are better, torpedoes are better, and it has like single launch. Secondaries are very terrible, but it has godlike A in the mid range. Just look at this, 40mm, look, bunch of them. So it has godlike AA. 33 knot speed with a speed boost that I talked about. This thing is just what every battlecruiser is supposed to be. Like every battlecruiser should be like this. But yeah, your consumer is godlike. Your maneuverability is a bit questionable because of the turning circle, but you can turn still, so it's not that bad because you have a really good concealment, so you can time your turns way more nicer. Short range hydro and the engine boost with a 10% boost. Not bad for real. German destroyer Karl von Schönberg. Tier 6. This is the Guard 150s. And I bet Wargaming gonna remove the Guard 150mm guns from the Guard. Because they're just gonna bring this. Why Guard gonna have the same guns then? It's kind of like Thunder Conqueror thing actually. You have same concealment, same torpedoes, slightly better 150mm guns with higher range and slightly better DPM, higher speed, and you have a heal, so you can actually play it like a cruise. You can just HE spam from the fog, while you don't have to worry about getting damaged that much often. The Brandenburg. This is the new German battleship. But this is actually not that new. It's been like 1 year since we actually first heard about this ship. So what is this ship? It has low HP, like lower than some of the other tier 8s. It has very terrible guns, low range, and low damage output with a very low caliber. This thing is very questionable. Because it, in my opinion, it should be like 26 second with a 1.8 sigma. Because you don't really have the overmatch. The 380mm, even 380mm doesn't have the overmatch, but this is even beyond. And you don't have the firing angles either. So Wargaming really has to make the 1.8 sigma and the 26 second reload just to save the guns. I think that would be just enough. We'll just make it alternative Bismarck. You have the same torpedoes as the Tirpitz. You have more secondaries than the Bismarck. That's a good part. And your AA is actually a bit of monsters compared to any other German ship. Yeah, it's not actually bad ship. Only thing that Wargaming should do is just buffing the guns a bit, and it's actually ready for release. That's my opinion though. So, I talked about what should happen with the German battlecruisers already, and I'm not happy about them. Like I said, they at this point they really look weak. They should get some buffs. Like Wargaming just rushed the stats, it looks like, because the stats of these ships are just way too bad. And really nothing makes them special. Like, if I want secondary boat, I will not go with the Schlieffen. I will go with the Corsica or Ohio. Not like I have the Ohio, but if I had. Because Schlieffen really doesn't have bringing anything to table, instead of being very restricting in terms of bowling. The guns are very weak. The secondaries needs IFHE to work with, which means you don't really get fires, unlike the Ghost Curvers or the Ohio. They didn't say anything about the accuracy of the secondary, so we don't know the accuracy settings of the secondaries as well. Everything in this thing is like questionable. So in the beginning that I was hyped, but my hype is actually died. So only thing that I can say, we will sit and just wait. Thanks for watching. If you liked the video, please just subscribe and join me on the Twitch, and I will see you next time. Peace.